And the reason that the they-them ad resonated so much, it was actually an economic argument more than it was an argument about trans issues. Because it said the Democrats are going to spend money on undocumented people. They're not going to spend it on Americans.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. Grab a seat, because this one is a spicy little roundtable. Today we're sitting in on a Fox News panel as they tear into the Democratic Party's long-delayed autopsy report on the 2084 loss, and let me tell you, the gloves come off fast. Greg Gutfeld goes on a full-throttle monologue about culture and identity, while Jessica Tarlov, the lone lefty at the table, refuses to just sit there and take it, and the back and forth between them is where things get really interesting. Now stick around all the way through, because the strongest moment is buried near the end where Jessica drops the one observation nobody else at the table wanted to admit, and I genuinely think it reframes the entire conversation. Trust me, you don't want to bail early on this one. Also, I'm always curious who's tuning in, so drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're watching from. I love seeing how far this little community stretches. Alright, enough from me. Let's get into it.
Well, to make matters worse for the left, according to the latest poll, only 20% of voters approve of the job the Democrat Party is doing. That puts them at 52 points in the hole heading into the midterms. Jessica doesn't believe that, Greg. I think it's true, though. I think this autopsy, what makes it so amazing is it wasn't that it had something in it no one knew and they didn't want anyone to know about. It's that the autopsy essentially confirms the entire line of attack Republicans used against Kamala and Biden through the entire election.
Yeah, that's part of it, but why people keep asking, why did it take so long to release the autopsy? Well, they were waiting for Kamala's toxicology report to come back. But autopsies are like an intervention. Your friends and family show up to tell you all the bad stuff that you've done. But here, they did skirt a lot of the issues. Why was that? The ones that mattered were the cultural issues. They weren't brought up here and they weren't mentioned, especially trans, because they haven't changed their positions on them. So if you're not going to fix the problem, you sure as hell aren't going to own up to it. You're going to talk about Trump instead. But the problem is, if the underlying positions are still there, we're still going to focus on it because it's a huge issue. I went back, Dana, to find out the first time I mentioned a trans-related story, 2011, 2012, about bathrooms. Now, I targeted this for a very important reason, because I saw the intimidation tactics that would occur when it happened. And I figured that if I persuaded people on the importance of fighting this battle, it would matter. It wasn't a marginal issue. You could say, I remember the argument, it's only a few trans people. That wasn't the point. It was an attempt to re-engineer biology and silence anyone who dare questioned it. Why was the trans issue so important to challenge? Because people still ask me this, usually when I'm out in the street signing autographs. I'll tell you why. It diagnosed and it exploited the fatal flaw of cultural relativism. That's the unlocked door where any idea that is detached from truth could enter. It just so happened that it was trans, but it didn't have to be. Trans women are women. That got in. But it could have been anything else. 60-year-olds are now 40. A morbidly obese person is now fit. Horses are people. Cantaloupes could have rights. It's all the same. Any position where truth is surrendered to the prevailing wishes of the mob would become the order of the day and would compel you to obey. That's why it mattered. It was like the first strike against a 13 billion-year-old planet. And it was a flex. It was a flex of the unravelers, the people who said, if we could do this, there's no such thing as truth anywhere.
Dana, why do you think they let it out now? Is fear it was going to get leaked?
Memorial Day weekend.
People won't pay attention. They had to do it eventually.
Yeah, so Memorial Day weekend, and obviously the president sucks up a lot of oxygen when it comes to all the headlines. So how can we get this out? Maybe they thought it was going to leak. And also a guy who used to work for Kamala Harris had gone out this week with a big piece. I don't remember where it ran, but Rob Flaherty, is that his name, Jessica? And he was like, here's what I think went wrong. So everybody was trying to get out ahead of this fact that they knew that it was going to come out. So there's that. On the they-them ad, so Adam Schiedler from TAG, that's the group that put the ad together. And if I think the DNC would have been very wise, they should hire Adam and his team to say, okay, here's the ad we would make about you today going into the midterms. They don't have to release it, but pay them, create the ad, and to know exactly what they're up against. It's be like there's something you do, it's called something in corporate jargon where you would do that. But to me,
opposition
research maybe, or like where you workshop it or something. So that way, at least they would know
those in the
what's
Marine Corps
coming.
would say you war game it. That's
war
what
game
you're
it.
war
Okay,
game.
war
That's
game.
what they say.
But the other thing is, as Greg has said, like, or you could watch The Five.
Yeah. Yes.
Because everything that is, I was reading this, all the like bullet points from this. I'm like, these are all the things that we're saying, not because we're geniuses, but because they were obvious.
Yeah.
This is the part that always gets me. Greg sits there acting like he's defending reality itself, but look at what he's actually doing. He takes one tiny group of people and turns them into the symbol of an entire civilization collapsing. Greg said this. It was an attempt to re-engineer biology and silence anyone who dare question it. You have to understand how massive that leap is. We are talking about human beings trying to live their lives, and somehow that becomes a conspiracy to rewrite the universe. Then he goes even bigger. Greg said this. 60-year-olds are now 40, a morbidly obese person is now fit, horses are people, cantaloupes, it's all the same. Do you hear that? He just dropped a piece of fruit into the same sentence as a human being. Watch what he's really doing there. You take something people don't fully understand, you stack it next to something absurd, and you let the fear do all the work. Nobody is saying a melon is a citizen, Greg. That's a cartoon version of the people he disagrees with, and it's a lot easier to beat a cartoon than a real person. Here's what people don't realize. Every single generation has run this exact panic. When Americans fought to end the bans on interracial marriage, the same words came out. Unnatural. Against biology, the end of order. The Supreme Court settled that one in 1967, and somehow the sky stayed right where it was. So when Greg says, any position where truth is surrendered to the prevailing wishes of the mob would become the order of the day and would compel you to obey, I don't hear a brave truth-teller. I hear an old script wearing a new costume. The mob he's so afraid of is just people asking for a little dignity.
Or you could talk to a guy. If you want to know what guys, why you lost the male vote, go talk to a guy. You don't need $10 million in a, in some sort of study here, autopsy. But there were some things in here that they should be listening to. The stuff that happened about how they lost young men. They talked about the rural vote and how they lost the rural working class vote. You talk about it. And it's interesting that they lost that vote after Hillary didn't go to Wisconsin, and everyone thought that was a big point of why she lost that election. So the report was, let out sloppily. There was a conclusion page that was blank. It was a little bit of a hot mess, but some of the stuff in there is still relevant. And I'm not seeing anyone, especially on the trans issue that Greg brought up, other than Gavin Newsom. I don't see anybody else. You saw Governor West from Maryland, Westmore. He's still saying all the trans stuff from, 2024. So why don't they want to listen to this? I think it's good. Some of this is good stuff.
Yeah, but the time to look at it was a year ago when it was available for release. They made it into a scandal when it wasn't. We've had a number of autopsies that have come out since the election, and they all say basically the same thing. Jared Moskowitz is.
So why didn't they release it? Why did they wait?
Because it's a piece of crap. The fact that we spent our money on this, the DNC dollars that could have gone to, knocking on doors or whatever else, on an unfinished piece of shoddy work. There were no citations, and it would be like, X, Y, or Z happened, or this interview, and then no cites. You don't know who said it. You don't know how he came up with his numbers. And so Ken Martin had to go in and redline the whole thing and say on the side in the brackets, or what's it called? Like the
margins?
In the margins, he says no evidence for this. No evidence for this. So he didn't release it because he's embarrassed.
Sounds like climate science. Sounds like all the climate science you guys said was real.
It doesn't sound like that at all. Actually.
Yes, it does.
It is friend. It is long. Well, it's not. It's his longtime friend. This guy Paul Rivera, who, by the way, was still on the DNC dole until today, basically, when now he's not going to be working on this anymore. So Ken Martin knew it was really bad, and he felt shame about it. You're totally right about, Biden was not included in this, essentially. The talk of him being too old, being shielded from the public, that is a central factor in why we ended up losing the 2024 election.
Now watch how the energy shifts. Rachel jumps in with this. You want to know why you lost the male vote? Go talk to a guy. And honestly, she's onto something real, because the party does have a problem connecting with young men. But notice the move she makes. Her big solution is just go talk to a guy, like listening to half the country is some quirky little life hack instead of the actual job. That tells you the whole table would rather land a laugh than sit with the harder question of why those voters walked away. But here's where Jessica drags it back to earth, and this is the part I respect. Jessica said this: they made it into a scandal when it wasn't. Think about that for a second. A party paid someone, the homework came back sloppy, and instead of quietly fixing it, the loudest voices turned a bad assignment into a national emergency. And Jessica didn't even sugarcoat the work. Jessica said this because it's a piece of crap. She's not defending the report. She's the one being honest about it, which is more than you can say for the people pretending it's some smoking gun. Then comes my favorite little moment. Greg tries to yank climate science into a conversation that has absolutely nothing to do with it, just to score a cheap jab. And Jessica refuses to chase him. Jessica said this: it doesn't sound like that at all. Clean. No flailing. Let me break down why that matters so much. The entire strategy on that side of the table is to keep things slippery, to never stay on one fact long enough to get pinned down. The second she's lured off topic, she loses, so she just didn't go, she stayed planted. That is how you actually win a panel.
I think putting this out earlier would have given Democrats inspiration to have a talking point or a message or a platform beyond not Trump.
We had this already.
Trump is bad,
I learned nothing in here except that they hired an inept person to do something that was deeply important after.
I don't trust any analysis when they say that they don't like the report because it's shoddy, because they've never said that about their reports. They just don't like this report.
That's not true. All of the reports that have come out say that we majorly messed up in 2024, that we messed up in some ways even in 2020. It was a COVID election, and that made it was a different game. Obviously, I think, if we hadn't had a global health pandemic, President Trump might have won re-election, frankly, if people had not been stuck in their houses, et cetera, and the economy hadn't crashed. And we
mail-in votes.
Yes, we stole it. I want to say something, though, about the trans issue.
Is this the leering center of autopsy reports? Like, it's a scam. Like, this guy got paid a lot of money to do nothing.
No, he didn't do nothing. He just did a bad job at what he was doing. On the they-them ad, it was mentioned in here, and it said that it did have a big impact.
It's funny, though, because it says they failed to address the they-them attacks. You address it by having common sense and rebuking it. You don't address it like, oh, by the way.
No, but they literally
it was
just
an issue that the entire country looked at and said, you're crazy.
It just sat there like a big turd in the middle of the election or in the middle of her 107 days. And the reason that the they-them ad resonated so much, it was actually an economic argument more than it was an argument about trans issues. Because it said the Democrats are going to spend money on undocumented people. They're not going to spend it on Americans. It wasn't necessarily to goad people into feeling like, oh, I hate trans people. And Greg, you said, we could tell them anything. We could say that a 40-year-old is a 60-year-old, or maybe a 60 is a 40-year-old. That's not it. People believe that transgender people exist. What they don't believe is that they should be competing in competitive sports against biological women. That's what happened with all these bathroom bills. That you even see conservatives that say, I don't really care where you pee. Just don't make it my problem.
This is where it all comes together for me. Greg sets up a clever little trap. Greg said this: I don't trust any analysis when they say that they don't like the report because it's shoddy, because it never said that about their reports. It sounds smart for about 2 seconds. The whole implication is that critics only suddenly care about quality when it's convenient. But Jessica does not let it sit there. Jessica said this: that's not true. All of the reports that have come out say that we majorly messed up in 2024. And that is the line between honest self-criticism and a talking point. One side is willing to say out loud, we got this wrong, and here's why. The other side just wants the loss to stay a punchline forever. But the smartest thing said in this entire segment, and I mean this, is when Jessica explains why a certain attack ad actually landed. Jessica said this: the reason the They Slossum ad resonated so much, it was actually an economic argument more than it was an argument about trans issues. This is the part that blows my mind, because she just handed everyone the real lesson, and the rest of the table almost strolled right past it. That ad didn't win because people woke up hating their neighbors. It won because it aimed straight at the wallet and dressed a money fear up as a culture fight. Once you see that, you genuinely cannot unsee it. And here's what people don't realize. Jessica drew a line most loud voices flat out refused to draw. Jessica said this: people believe that transgender people exist. What they don't believe is that they should be competing in competitive sports against biological women. You can agree or disagree with exactly where she placed that line, but at least she placed one. She treated this like a real policy question with real disagreement, instead of a war over whether a group of people is allowed to exist at all. That is grown-up politics. The fear merchants need every single issue to be the end of the world, because panic sells and nuance doesn't. She just wanted it to be a debate. And that, to me, is the whole story sitting on that table. One side is selling fear by the gallon. The other side is quietly asking everybody to take a breath and actually think. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.